Let's talk about it. TBIs and how they make life a little more complicated than life already is. It makes me feel like a stranger in a familiar place all the time. Managing a TBI is a lifestyle, so let's talk about it. The chef from the Muppets. Can I get a yes? Thank you for tuning into the 1-8 Garage podcast. My name is Ian, Mr. Pink Lily, and before I get started, I just want to send out a special thank you, to my sister Robin. She's starting her own life coach business. She's a total inspiration. I love her to death. I want to send out another thank you to the Ghost of 4ID on Instagram. Funny page. If you're having a bad day and you're a soldier out there, go over to the Ghost of 4ID. Check out his posts. They are hilarious. I promise you will laugh. They're amazing. And I also want to thank Connie Lester. She's the morale officer on the show. She's always pushing me, throwing ideas at me, keeping me on track. Love her to death. And thank you so much, Connie. I appreciate everything you've done. So before, green is the color for TBI Awareness Month. I don't know where that came from, but hey, it's cool. I love it. And as a person, with a traumatic brain injury, I feel obligated to, share my personal TBI challenges that I deal with on the regular. And it's in hopes to share and educate the unknowing. And, it's like when I say unknowing, that isn't a negative. If you haven't had exposure to something like this, how can you know what it is? But before I kick off the show, is it me or is there like a national something holiday every month, like National Cat Month? Well, it looks like I'm going to name this month National E4 Mafia Awareness Month. So here's a shout out to all the specialists making the Army go round. Thank you for all you do. We know it too. An example I'm going to use to start the show is me. I ran over an IED, which I go into detail about in a previous episode, while moving toward an enemy position in the Bradley infantry fighting vehicle. It almost killed me. It rendered me completely unconscious. I was out like a shot to the face from Mike Tyson. But since I wasn't injured, losing my legs, my arm, taking a round somewhere on me, the doctor referred to me as, high functioning, and the injuries are, they're not acknowledged in the severity of which they are. There was no medical relief during the invasion. When your vehicle was blown up and you managed to survive, you dust it off and you continue mission. If you were a soldier during the invasion, you need to comment below. You need to share it. That was it. Suck it up and move on. The desert sun after that became unbearable to me. I needed sunglasses 24/7. After that, even to this day, I have 3 to 4 pair of sunglasses in my car. They are random all over my house. I have to have them. So I suffer. I suffer a lot. Just as the thousands of service members out there, they suffer the same way. So now let me share why my TBI makes my life more challenging than it already is. And to begin, it constantly makes me feel like a stranger, even in a familiar place. As adults, we spend the first 18 years of our lives figuring out who we are, establishing our identity. Those of us who endure TBI, or what is known as a traumatic brain injury, spend the rest of our lives figuring it out on top of that. Some never figure it out due to the damage, or the depression through that damage from the struggle that follows. That was a tongue twister. A TBI can manifest from a nasty car accident, stepping into the ring of a full contact sport, fights at school, slipping and falling, playing with your kid and busting your head on a coffee table, falling down some stairs. So when I began noticing I had a problem, it was early on, but I brushed it off. It can affect some of the simple things in life. Like for me, as an example, is roller coasters. I can't ride them anymore. The G-forces cause a lot of head pain and give me headaches on top of the headaches I already have. So some of those little fun things we take for granted, they're gone forever. I get to watch everyone else have fun. Sometimes. People don't believe me and say I'm just scared or say I'm just making up excuses. Some of you out there may have a TBI and don't even know it. is you've been compensating your whole life, without realizing it. As an example, it took me 14 years to get my bachelor's degree. My TBI was a big factor in me taking so long, and it was frustrating. It was a struggle and a challenge. There are other reasons too, but I'm not going to get into that. Perhaps we can touch on that later on a different show if you're up for it. So the effects for me on that injury mean I struggle to concentrate, read, and sometimes the reading can be painful, pulsating, straining to focus. It feels like not all the information passes through the channel, when using eye functions. I struggle to read, so I wear blue tinted reading glasses. That's my adaptive device, to help me review documents online, reading textbooks. It's not a big deal to wear the glasses, but when you dissect the core of this issue and realize where it comes from, it is a big deal. The ceiling lights can reflect off the white pages of the textbook, making it too bright to read. So I have to read in low light conditions. Then it's a challenge seeing because the lights are dimmed. Reading is too strenuous. As I read through the book or web page, I tend to skip lines as I'm reading along. I go from line 5 to 7, and by the end of what I'm reading, the page made no sense. So I go back and read again. Now I've read the page 3 times. It makes sense, but I'm tired. Tasks like this take me twice as long. Some of my frustrations with the terminology, the TBI, concussions, is that the term stings. It sounds nasty. What it does is it plants a seed in community-based outlets, creating a visual of a veteran wheelchair-bound, requiring a caretaker, or, someone who can't manage their own finances or bodily functions. That scenario is a rare one, but it's very real. And because of the severity of this rare, unfortunate occasion, it becomes the central focus, which is a stereotype. It generalizes the rest of us. It downplays our silent struggles. This common silent struggle isn't taken seriously. It's easier to create the stereotype than to express the emotional intelligence, to try and understand the broad spectrum as we lay out the challenges. That takes some work. Therefore, we have to work harder with less help and support. I don't think many want to feel awkward trying to understand an issue, especially when the issue is walking and talking with them. Being caught off guard doesn't allow prep time. For when that awkward moment, like discussion, may need to come up. It's easier to be a saint when you have no skin in the game. So, with that image of the paralyzed guy in mind, the rest of us who can manage to get by, constantly compensating, don't fit the description. We unfortunately feel a little left behind. I'm only one person in one case. There are many others out there who are worse off than I, or not as bad. We are extremely fragile and very resilient all in the same. The days vary where the struggle bus picks you up, takes you for a ride. It's like one day I wake up, I'm high energy, I'm high functioning, I'm motivated, I'm dedicated, I'm loud, I can do the work of 4 people with the metrics to back it up. Then it's a week of despair. This isn't from exhaustion. I'm not down and tired from all the productivity, but a skill level 1 task such as tying my shoes suddenly become a challenge. It's tough. I've had times where I wake up in the morning and I stare at the ceiling for 3 hours on a Saturday, and it feels like 10 minutes. Some of the challenges veterans encounter, it kind of falls on us a little bit because we don't talk about our service, and it's kind of left in the minds for the civilians to figure it out. Their imagination runs wild. You can't really blame them, but it doesn't help our disposition. We need to get rid of the stereotype that, asking for help is a weakness. It is a strength to communicate and share. Doing so helps yourself and can give strength to others to do the same. We all need to love ourselves and know that we are worth it. We matter. Some of us choose to join the military. The military has one mission: to win wars. The mission always comes first, even at the cost of a Pyrrhic victory, to achieve total victory over our country's enemies. It changes us. We see war, we fight, we die, we endure. We endure advanced injuries, in some cases that can't be cured or rehabilitated, the TBI being one of the most common injuries. Now, leaving the military, the unseen injury, it forces us to inadvertently develop compensatory techniques to finish out our even common daily routines. Accident, coincidence, and failure has been my greatest teacher. And through this process, I've been able to somewhat, get things under control. I'm continuously adapting and overcoming. I love it. I've developed new techniques such as new ways to read, ways to stay on task, etc. I sometimes think out loud. I verbalize all of my thoughts. Most of my conversation makes no sense. It's verbal diarrhea because I'm sorting my thoughts like a file cabinet. It's a mechanism of my ability to problem solve. If I'm doing it while others are around me, I definitely get the stink eye. And sometimes it really confuses them. That in of itself creates separate challenges. I don't want to get into that. I know without Google Calendar, I'd be lost in the world. I put every little thing on that calendar that needs to be done. My online Google Calendar can look a little ridiculous, like a maze where sometimes it can be so confusing. It may be almost counterproductive, but not really because I always stay on task because I'm infantry. But it's documented. A technique I use in the workplace is, I carry a notebook everywhere. I go and I write down what needs to be done, everything. When my boss gives me instructions on a task, I repeat it back to him. I do this in order to establish clarity, just as a soldier would who is practicing proper commo discipline. I've had some employers who understand what I'm doing. I've had some employers who were, very disrespectful, because of my methods, and they treated me as if I were incompetent. That's hurtful. I'm not a doctor, but I am the expert of my body. I do believe that doctors will, downplay the severity of your injuries simply based on your appearance. And what I mean by that is that if you have a visible injury, the doctor can use that as a means to decipher your level of disability. A TBI changes the chemical makeup of your brain. It's like someone addicted to an illicit drug or a prescription drug. It changes who you are. You have to reinvent yourself. And I say that multiple times because the emphasis on how badly this affects your life, it needs to be understood. I have become a completely different person. The Ian that used to be is dead. He is never coming back. It feels harsh, and it can be very hard to accept that. But I'll never know or remember who Ian was. In some regard, I'm glad, but there is an internal peace that I once had that's gone forever. I always joke to myself, why couldn't I get hit on the head and come back as Einstein or something, like a math wizard? A regression occurs in my case instead of a progression. But it's impossible to explain with depth and then to explain it to those around me who think they get it and say they get it. Yes, they have no clue. They tell you what you want to hear. Some of it is cynicism on their end. The intentions can be good, but it only creates frustration with me. I'm sure others of you out there agree. Use the term prisoner because that's what you are. You're a prisoner of your own mind. It's like being in prison at Alcatraz and you're trying to find a way out, constantly searching for the escape route. You're digging and plotting the escape to hopefully swim across the ocean, in hopes of discovering who you used to be. The fascination of being normal again is intoxicating, but, that digging overcomes me and it prevents me from my escape. So I suck it up. This may sound ridiculous, but one thing that helps me get by is I do recite the Infantryman's Creed because it exists in my DNA. And at any given command, I can recite it on spot. Allow me to demonstrate. I am the infantry. I am my country's strength at war, her deterrent in peace. I am the heart of the fight. Wherever, whenever, I carry America's faith and honor against her enemies. I am the queen of battle. I am what my country expects me to be, the best trained soldier in the world in the race for victory. I am swift, determined, and courageous, armed with the fierce will to win. Never will I fail my country's trust. Always I fight on to the foe, through the objective, to triumph over all, and if necessary, I will fight to my death. By my steadfast courage, I have won over 250 years of freedom. I yield not to weakness, to cowardice, to fatigue, to superior odds, for I am mentally tough, physically strong, and morally straight. I forsake not my comrades, my sacred duties. I am relentless. I am always there, now and forever. I am the infantry. Follow me. That was not edited. I continue the mission, and I push through. That foe, which is my mind. As a casualty, your appearance doesn't change, just your psyche. These challenges really beat me down, and they really caused me to go into hibernation. When describing my TBI concussion to people, I feel like I'm getting the, oh, this guy's making up excuses for himself, or he is just a typical guy that doesn't pay attention, and he forgets about everything, only focusing on himself, or this guy's just really dumb and doesn't get it. These are the most common scenarios I face. It affects me on the job. It affects me in my relationships. It compounds the issues, and it feels like it's just all spiraling out of control sometimes. The brain is a computer, And a TBI is a form of it's overheating the processor because it constantly is experiencing compensative shock. The processor slows down so that it can adequately process the information. Sometimes I need to just stop what I'm doing. I'll stare at the wall, take a deep, hard breath and focus on something that isn't there so that I can clear my mind. Then I realized all I was doing was trying to find where I put the screwdriver and the cordless drill so I could hang a picture. Then I scratched my head as to wonder why I placed the milk in the cupboard next to the dinner plates. It is borderline impossible to establish an effective rhythm. My doctor told me that the severity could cause early stage dementia. That was really depressing. But my father gives me the soundest advice. Don't worry, son. Your last name is Lilly. You're going to live long and poor. In order for me to do the same job the same way multiple times, building rhythm is daunting. I work a job now. I do data entry, simple to the point, attention to detail. I'm on a computer. I got 2 monitors. I'm inputting data the same way for each line. Or you would think. I managed to perform this task, out of order majority of the time. And this is where it becomes hard. I have to check my work more frequently, just slowing me down. It's not counterproductive. So I have to work twice as hard as everyone else. And it builds character, I'll work through my lunch breaks most of the time, not even taking my 15-minute. I'll work offline just so I can keep up with the team. I'll go to work early and work off the clock so I can catch up. Managing a concussion is a lifestyle, and it's very exhausting, and I'm tired of being tired of it. But it's permanent, and I have to accept that. However, it doesn't make it any easier. So let me try to go into greater depth here. There are instances where 3 ideas that I come up with simultaneously. This should be a simple multitasking situation, but it feels like a traffic jam, like a 4-lane highway drops down to 1 lane both ways. The intent of the ideas, which is the idea processing, is backed up for miles. These ideas are woven together in my head like a bowl of spaghetti, and the fog is rolling in. It is factually painful to process a thought sometimes. Having an idea can be like lifting weights when you have no upper body strength. We've been there. Then I have to sit down, cross my arms. I lay my head on the table. I become partially powerless at managing these thoughts. And my scatterbrain kicks in as an emergency response for answering questions and problem solving. And it can become so overwhelming, I begin to focus on one idea as the other 2 fade away. And in doing so, I start to kind of panic a little. I stumble as I take cliff notes as quick as possible so that I can revisit those other 2 ideas when my thoughts calm down. Over time, I occasionally come back to the ideas when I'm least expecting it. But the majority of the time, the ideas are gone forever. And I swear that I've come up with $1 million idea, and I can't remember how many viewers have said that before. Also when these multiple ideas are trying to flow through the neck of the hourglass, it leads to me slurring my speech a bit. I feel that the outside view of a person with a TBI can make us look like we have a split personality, That's just my personal struggle. A simple thought enters my mind, like, describing instructions for a to-do task. An attempt to verbally describe and lay out the instructions of the expectations of said task. Then I get frustrated because I'm unable to find the words to clearly and effectively describe what needs to be done. But when I have a good day, that good day, it flows like genius. The person I am working with, they see my frustrations, then they believe I'm frustrated with them, when in fact I'm upset with myself because I can't find the words to dictate the expectations of the task. My partner or coworker, they'll misinterpret this as a PTSD moment. He's stressed out. He can't take the pressure or whatever. It's like, no, I'm just upset with myself because I'm struggling to find the words to get through, that particular moment. And the words are on the tip of my tongue, and it's like reaching out for a carrot on a string, and the marionnettist puppeteer slowly pulls the carrot away from me, the closer I get until I fall. Well, that fall is alienating those around me, all from a simple misunderstanding. I want to try and create a visual, which is a funny one that I love. I reflect on the episode of Seinfeld titled, The Comeback, where, George Costanza tries to deliver a retort to Seinfeld that he thought of way too late. And then he comes back to the discussion later. He tries to restart the conversation. So, he can come up with a conclusion. And Seinfeld says, hey man, you took too long. It doesn't count. It's the funniest thing I love. And, that episode, that's my frequent nightmare, to a point where I will withdraw from conversation. With all of this being said, I don't mean that, you need to mind read in order to understand a TBI. You simply need to care, or don't get involved. Do your best to think beyond yourself. I'll get really excited about an idea that I want to share, whether it be in text or email. And, when the message comes out, sometimes I get like a snarky response about spelling or errors and all that, I can think of saying out loud is, that's all you got. That's all you took away from that was, spelling errors. It's like, come on, man, use some deductive reasoning. Work with me here. But, if you're not talking about, your TBI, how are they supposed to know? They just look at you like you're big dumb. So I withdraw, I keep it to myself and digress, whatever. Another issue from TBI is nausea. And in a more severe concussion, headache, compromised balance and vision, let's not forget the headaches. And, oh man, the headaches, those become disabling at times. I just need to sit down and chill for a minute. They come and go, ebbs and flows, yay, rah. With the headaches, though, nausea always follows. You get vertigo, and that is no fun. And that can be in a very simple setting. You're just walking down a hallway, and ooh, it just kind of comes into play. Coordination fails. You come around the corner, you bump into the wall. Friends insult you. When depth perception is off, a bump into things. You will never sleep right again. Hence the CPAP. And being tired all the time will prevent you from processing clear thoughts. Your energy will be stolen from you. Your TBI is linked to CPAP. You got breathing challenges. I go to bed every night strapping on a CPAP mask. And I'm not afraid to admit that. The marks on my face give it away, right? But no, it's a struggle, man. It really is. You really got to laugh at this stuff. Life is too short. So it is my hope that others who are suffering out there with parallel challenges, you'll share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to be on the show and talk about it, I'd love to have you. Be great to hear other things. I can only talk to myself for so long, you're always welcome on the 1-8 Garage podcast. Maybe it will help another listener. Maybe the listener will pass this on and help someone else. Pay it forward. Message me to be on the show. You can call in, remain anonymous, and use an alias. We don't care. We'd love to hear from you. However you want to share. Thank you for tuning in to the 1-8 Garage podcast, checking us out. It's been a pleasure to talk about this. It's hard. It's really hard to get this out. And when you put it out there, it's out there forever. And, people can be judgmental, and I don't care. I'm the one that served my country at a time of war. I'm the one who suffered these advanced injuries. And I know there's others out there who are suffering from these injuries too. And I'm with you. We can do this together. Let's rock out, man. So thank you so much. It's great seeing you. Have a nice day.